All right, welcome back to another Wright Stew podcast. I am Paul Stewart.
And I am Brian Wright, and we have made it to the best day of the week, which is Friday, in my opinion.
Friday. Gotta
You
get
got
down on Friday.
the majority of the week behind you. You have a week you got to get through today. Hopefully, you sell something, do something productive in work, and then you get a couple of days to feel good about yourself, maybe.
Just
Or get
re-energize. Somebody that is not going to be re-energizing, Brian, are the NC State Wolfpack and head coach Kevin Keatts. We're gonna go pretty local on this one. So Brian, as you know, an NC State graduate, played baseball there. I was an NC State recruit, married into an NC State family. So I've seen the ups, mostly downs over the past, 35 years. Brian, you've lived that life. You were on campus for it. And most recently, the NC State Wolfpack. So they won their most recent basketball game. They beat a very average to slightly below average Pitt team on senior night. So it was good to see the seniors go out with the win. But then later on in the night, Notre Dame beat Stanford, which eliminated the NC State Wolfpack basketball team. Not from NCAA contention, Brian, but from the ACC tournament. They didn't even qualify for the conference tournament. Coming off of a year that can only be described as magical, where they made their Final Four run, they won the ACC tournament. How do you have the ultimate high followed by the ultimate low?
I would say every team now, especially at a school like NC State, where we're not really a blue blood, it's essentially a year-to-year prospect. I mean, we have some of the same kids, Middlebrooks, we had some of the same kids and guys asking us to kind of take a little bit bigger roles, but it's truly a year-to-year deal. I think one of the things that's interesting is with Keatts in his run last year, he extended his contract by 2 or 3 years, depending on how you look at it. And it's going to be really tough and increase his money significantly. And so I don't know if you can fire him after this year. It's been a very average year. The question I have for you, Paul, as a NC State fan, would you have taken mediocrity, which is what's kind of been our baseline, and given that up and said, last year you can win the ACC tournament and you can go to the Final Four, but the next year you won't even make the ACC tournament? Would you have traded the reality of what we've got for something different?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you ever turn away a run at the Final Four, right? It's kind of that's something that people will remember, even non-NC State fans. That team became America's sweethearts. They were the darlings. People love seeing that. And we talked a little bit about like kind of underdogs and Cinderellas the other day. They were certainly an underdog and a Cinderella to an extent, but there was still history with NC State. They were still an ACC school. It wasn't like it was, again, no shade at like a small like San Diego State or Butler did it a while back in back-to-back years. Those were legitimately like from small conferences. NC State's still playing in the ACC. They still won the ACC last year. So I think as an NC State kind of partial fan, I would call myself, you don't I mean, you keep the NCAA run knowing that the
You
next year.
accept the fate of what has happened.
Yeah. But here's the thing that's really odd to me. I feel like if you make a run like that and you're on the biggest stage nationally, how do you not convert that into some better recruits coming in? How do you not convert that to more, build upon that success? Like, and again, maybe you're right. Maybe this is just a different time, a different era when kids really don't care about that and they care more about, what can get in their bank account. But again, it feels like that's the time when Keats should have gone hard and been really like, hey, look where we're at. I want you to be a part of this program and help keep us here for years and years to come. And clearly that is not happening right now.
I do think it's a bad sign that you cannot build off of that. And again, we've talked about Shire at Duke, and Keats is kind of from the Pitino tree of coaching. He's under Louisville, then he goes to UNCW, and then he comes to NC State. And you kind of hope he has some of that Pitino magic. He's up at St. John's and done turned St. John's into a powerhouse. When he's been fired for kind of sketchy behavior at times, and people look past it because he knows how to get results and win. And I haven't been in the locker room. I don't know, but it just feels like the good programs that are sustainable do a couple of things. And one of them is accountability, and one of it is team above self. And I don't feel like we have any of that. And really, that's been NC State's kind of issue for a long time. We would get like one really good player, but I feel like the only reason we got that good player was because we told them, hey, you can shoot the ball anytime you want in any situation.
Dennis Smith Jr. was the key example there. Big time recruit, but really monopolized the ball.
And we paid him under the table before it was allowed.
Yeah,
but I feel like that was going on.
Yeah, he was actually caught. They got caught for that and in some trouble. But
yeah, that's not speculation.
Yeah.
So I think you really need a teacher at a place like NC State and I see why he got the job. I feel like Keats is kind of his run is kind of done. If you cannot build off of what you did last year, it's not a good sign for sustained sustainability. Yeah. Right. And so
he's been there this is his 8th season. He's only made the NCAA tournament 3 times. And this is record-wise by far his worst season. Well, not by far. He was in 2021-22, he was 11-21. This year he's currently 12-18 with really no prospects of playing in the postseason at all. So yeah, man, it's
So let's transition then. Do you, keeping everything in mind, the stats you just brought out, and you got an unlimited pocketbook, and I know NC State doesn't, do you keep Keats or do you let him go?
I think you got to let him go. I mean, I think he's probably a decent coach, but not. He hasn't shown that he can maintain success over a long period of time. And if the guy misses the shot last year against Virginia, he's probably fired last year, realistically.
I know part of me, and again, it's such an NC State thought, but you kind of wish, but it ended up being such a great run. You can't really wish that. How about Miami hired a Duke assistant in the middle of the season? You don't necessarily see this that often, but Lucas, the assistant coach at Duke, got hired to be the Miami coach. He's the son of a famous Lucas college basketball coach as well. And obviously is paid his dues, and you don't see a hire this time of year. Obviously, he's going to finish out his time with the Blue Devils, and they got a chance to really make a great run deep into this with the talent, coaching, the whole shebang. But it has been incredible that we haven't been able to go out and find our guy for such a long time. I mean, I think you take a risk on the next one. I think you go young, you take a risk, and you be willing to. You gotta, a lot of these programs are starting to have GMs. I saw Duke had a female GM, and I know North Carolina is hiring a GM. You kind of got to take it with a pro model and let a GM kind of be that person that kind of handles some money situations, maybe tries to help put together a team, share some of that responsibility. And then if you have that, you really need a teacher on the court. And I think that's what the good programs are going to do, and not the ones who have this 1 year flash in the pan, but a sustainable program. Now, you got to have a coach that has some discipline and get some things in order and recruit the right kind of athletes. The great thing about basketball is you need a very small group of guys to be willing to buy in. And it's obviously much easier said than done, though.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit in NC State basketball history. Not too far, Brian, but from 1996, the 1996-97 season to the 2005-2006 season, they had a coach named Herb Sendek.
That was my error.
That was while you were in school, he was your guy. And so Herb's last 5 years at NC State, they made the NCAA tournament every year. Did they go to the Final Four? They made, I think, a Sweet 16. Year Andrew Brackman hit that three against Connecticut. Um, he was successful. He ran a very specific offense, and it was a very European style of basketball where everybody on the court could handle the ball, everybody on the court could shoot the ball. He was creating very versatile players in college that translated to the NBA. He was actually spitting out some NBA talent, and Herb Sendek got ran out of town because
I
he
think it was a little bit ran out of town, a little bit went to Arizona State and had a very soft landing. I don't think he didn't actually get fired, but it was a very we talked to Cedric Simmons just briefly, and we're going to get him on the podcast. He said he did not love the offense, but he did love Herb Sendek.
So Ced Simmons was the 15th overall pick by the New Orleans Hornets in the 2006 draft, played for Herb Sendek for a couple years. Said Herb got him ready for the NBA because he taught him ball handling, taught him shooting. He could go inside, outside, do a little bit of everything. But Herb's offense was considered a little methodical, and you had to kind of stay within the confines of the system. But truly, you could do a little bit of everything within the system. And man, it created for some success. Had some good players, some good teams, and I think part of what was going on at NC State at the time was the football coach was a fellow named Chuck Amato, and so Chuck Amato, he won some games, came from Florida State. Originally, was an NC State guy. Had a lot of success at Florida State with Bobby Bowden. Came back to NC State, but Chuck was just bold and brash and flashy and said all the things and kind of talked the trash and said, "Yeah, I don't like Carolina," and had that voice and the whole thing. And NC State fans just ate it up, right? And Herb Sendek though, just very under the radar, kind of seen as a quiet guy. I don't know. I've never talked to her. I don't know him personally at all, but the perception from the media and was very just matter of fact, to the point. Didn't give you the big sound bites that Chuck would. And so you had these two programs at NC State at the time, and the basketball program was doing much better than the football program.
Well, we had some good years there with Philip Rivers. I think
Well,
we
it was
got
the Philip Rivers year.
Yeah.
You're right. So they had good years. So it was a good time to be an NC State, realistically. But Chuck was kind of put up on a pedestal because he did all the things. I've got a Chuck Amato bobblehead doll over here. I don't have a Herb Sendek bobblehead doll, but and so
I would argue
that was part of it. I mean, so you were there, Brian. Would you agree with some of that, or am I way
I
off
would
base?
agree. I'd agree to an extent. As a spectator, I'd say NC State. It puts you on the offense. At least my perspective was it puts you on level playing field with almost anybody, but also meant you could get beat by almost anybody. I think we do have a little bit of the little brother complex with what North Carolina has done, and North Carolina was doing the opposite. They're getting it out and pushing the pace and scoring 80,
Yeah,
90,
they're up
100
and down.
points. And so I think we did kind of feel like, hey, that's fun to watch, right? They're putting up a bunch of points. And so I do think we were maybe a victim of that and maybe a victim of what you spoke to. I never actually even thought about it from the perspective you just brought up. I'd always thought about it from the perspective that you got a really successful two schools 20 miles down the road or less, and you're having to not only compete for athletes, you're competing for kind of relevance. And so it is really difficult to be able to, to be the third wheel in a small community. We spoke on Ohio State, and they're kind of the school in Ohio, and you speak on a lot of schools. Or Alabama has two kind of real schools with Alabama and Auburn, and LSU. There's just it's very difficult in this market if you don't position yourself well. But it is, I don't think there's no magic pill unless Goodnight, the owner of SAS, decides to really take a strong interest in sports the way the owner of Oregon and Nike has connected and made them really relevant. I think if Goodnight from SAS said, "Hey, I want all NC State sports." Obviously, he's an NC State grad, made billions of dollars through SAS and all kinds of different development programs. And he is, if he said, "Hey, I really want to commit to giving NC State 20, 30, 40, 50 billion dollars or $1 million a year," that's the only way we're going to be any different at this point. I don't see it changing. That's the reason I think you got to get a teacher. You try to go with the GM model. You realize that it's hard to win at any level when you're always getting third and fourth, fifth choice players. And that's where we are. Because if you like the area, you say, well, I like Duke or I like North Carolina. If you're getting paid more, maybe NC State's consideration. Now the SEC, the SEC is really taking over college basketball.
No, the SEC is the new they're the new ACC in basketball for sure.
And that's the money. Money talks. The other stuff walks. I don't see it. I really don't see it changing. I think there are still rumors of North Carolina leaving the ACC and Clemson leaving the ACC and Florida State leaving the ACC. And if North Carolina leaves the ACC, it's just a matter of time before the conference is irrelevant.
Yeah, it falls apart. So one of the other things I'd like to see from NC State basketball is, so my son and I, my daughter, we went to one game, two games maybe this year at the Lenovo Center now. It's too big, man. It's empty. We watched a little bit of the game on TV last night. It looks sad, man. And I know it was a Wednesday night game from a bad team, but bring those games back to Reynolds. Start playing on campus again.
Well, you can't bring it to Reynolds, I don't think.
Reynolds
6,000 people now.
It's 5,500 is official seating capacity.
Yeah,
probably jam in a few more. But here, would you rather play a packed house in front of 5,500 people where they're kind of on top of you and there's some atmosphere? Or would you rather play in front of 5,500 people in a 20,000 seat arena where it feels?
Well, I can't argue as far as the atmosphere would be better, but I would argue that the money economics work better at the other place. Season tickets have been sold, and those season tickets are going. There's a lot more available, a lot better seating. You got So the reason they did it is economics. Thinking that, hey, we can maybe not completely sell out most basketball games, but the big ones we still will. And we have an opportunity to sell a ton more season tickets. I don't disagree that the arena is really too big for the interest level, but I don't see it changing.
No, 10 or money talks. Follow the trail. It's going to lead to who's making the most amount of money. But man, some of those midweek games, the game against Pitt or Cal or Stanford that nobody locally cares about really.
Which is kind of sad, right? Because NC State has some history. Right? I hate that every time we talk about relevance, we have to go back to 83. And so that's kind of pathetic. But, it is what it is. I still think you think about, Butler, there's a lot of good teams, a lot of nice programs that are pretty bad this year. Butler's pretty bad this year. Oklahoma State's pretty bad this year. There's some teams with some relevance. So we're not a complete anomaly, just an outcast. But it's we just don't ever feel like we can take consistent steps forward. And that's hard to win. I think that's the reason they pay these coaches. It takes more than just one thing to win. You got to have a great coach. That coach has to be able to retain assistants because as well as I do in that sport, great assistance is what helps your team develop.
Yeah, it matters.
You got to have some resources to go out and find players because you're not getting the 5 stars unless you're overpaying for them. So there's so many moving parts within college basketball now that it's not just everybody can identify the top 25 talent, right? Those kids are going to Duke, UNC, and probably one of the SEC schools that offers them a bunch of money now. Or, so you're having to find third-tier talent and try to figure out how to compete with this first tier. And I think you got to have a teacher. Maybe a system like Herb isn't great to watch but can keep you in games. Maybe that's what you need. But it's not. You can't go up and try to compete athlete for athlete because we will lose and we'll end up with the record we got this year.
Yeah. So here, all right. So let's say John Shire says, "I want to go coach at NC State." Could John Shire turn the program around? Would he make a difference, or is that just so tied to Duke?
I think I was completely wrong about Shire. I didn't know how good a teacher. Everything that I've read and heard, not only is he a good communicator, fits the profile, but he's a good teacher. Has put in some new sets, done some things differently than what Coach K has done. Still emphasized some of the principles that Coach K had obviously won with for a long time. And then ultimately, here's the reality though: he got some damn good players whenever he was recruiting. I mean,
Yeah,
and let's just kind of say it. I mean, Duke for the longest time has been able to get really good, like the best white athletes to go to Duke and play
it's
basketball.
interesting. Yeah, if it's
It
interesting.
feels like that has kind of been their MO for like 40 years. I mean, from Leitner to Bobby Hurley. I mean, when you didn't have guards being able to move the way Hurley could move, to, obviously now with
Well, yeah,
most.
Kyle Singler and JJ Redick, and as much as people hated him, like Chris Collins and Steve Wojciechowski.
I was trying to think of Woj. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, all these really
yeah,
good.
the Plumlee brothers were in there. Marshall Mason. Yeah, man, there was a lot of it. I don't know.
They really have the market cornered on athletic whites that play basketball.
Yeah, Ryan Kelly. Forgot about Ryan Kelly. Brian Zubek, if you want to put him in there. They've also had some great black basketball players,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah, for
They've
sure,
done
for
pretty well in
sure.
that category as well. They've had, but I know what you're saying. It does seem like, hey, if it's a white guy, he's a good player.
And you got this year, the guy's going to probably be first or second pick. I mean, that is incredible. They've done a really good job of recruiting and he's done a really good job of holding his brand to the same standard that Coach K established it as. They talked about Coach K, and I'm sure people know, a lot of people know, but Coach K was close to getting fired. I mean, he had not won until his fourth year. And so he didn't step into Duke and have instant success. But once he got it, he was on the mobile. And again, there's been some down years here and there, but there have been two in a row. And I think Shire's done a great job. Great job. I mean,
Yeah,
his key, Coach K will always say his key to success is when he got Dawkins, and then Dawkins came in and really kind of changed his program.
They had Danny Ferry too in that early time frame, who was
You're
a
still thinking of the whites. And so,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
I'm going through as you're mentioning names, it's
yeah.
bringing up other names. Yeah,
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So they've done a really good job figuring out what their brand is and what their niche is, and they've continued to have success. I don't see there's no easy solution to NC State. Hey, I want to jump to something else before we run out of time, and just see if it's hit your radar at all. At all.
yeah. Let's hear it, buddy.
NFL Combine.
No, not at all.
I was amazed. I was just flipping on. Maybe it was. I don't think it was the NFL Network. I think it was ESPN, and I'm amazed by fans that attend and watch guys run 40s, run shuttles. The 225 bench press was broken. A guy got 49 reps, which is incredible. A lot of 4-4 guys just kind of gets you in the room if you're a really good athlete. A 12-foot broad jump, incredible. Saw that happen. And
That's
so all this has been stuff that I've seen as a highlight, but I just can't imagine being entertained by that in and itself. And like watching and sitting down and
you
listening to
are.
Rich
Yeah, so,
Eisen and talk about, he runs his
yeah.
40, you know.
It goes to show you just how much people love the NFL, love college football, and just where football stands in the zeitgeist of the sports world. It is currently king. Seems to have a pretty just firm grasp on that throne, and the NFL does a great job of marketing everything
They
to
do.
make it be an
It's
event.
not entertaining. It's just so incredible. I mean, I guess it's entertaining anytime you see athletes being athletic.
Well, I
But
just
like,
pulled up. I just pulled up the combine results, and it's got the 40-yard dash. That's kind of interesting, right? Seeing the guy Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky cornerback ran a 4.28 fastest time. Matthew Golden, receiver for Texas, ran a 4.29. Some guys are cooking, but then so vertical jump. Let's see. Nick Amanawari from South Carolina had a 43-inch vertical. That's pretty impressive. Here's your broad jump. The same guy, Nick Manawari, 11 foot 6 inches. Pretty impressive. But then they've got the 3-cone and the shuttle drill and all the times and yeah, the Luke Condra, guard from Cincinnati, repped 33 times. Man, just yeah. Some of this stuff is just like it's kind of interesting to see the results and scan.
yeah, but it's not entertainment. I'm just blown away that they have made like these workouts that probably weren't even videoed at one point in time into a thing. And then I saw the Kansas City Chiefs IT department. I think there's like 6 or 8 of them. Don't look it up yet.
Okay, I'm looking at some of these bench press results.
Ran the 40. What would you guess 40 times for the Kansas City Chiefs?
The Chiefs IT department?
Yes, I remember kind of the bottom end and the top end range.
So we just saw that 4.28 is the fastest time. Gosh, man, I work in IT. I see a lot of IT folks. Every once in a while, there's one that is in just great shape and does really well. I'm gonna say the fastest 5.55. Seems like
Fastest was 4.88.
4.88. Whoa, that's cooking, man. That's a real time.
And he was the only black IT guy.
Oh man.
And then the slowest that they showed was
I'm gonna say like in the 8s.
no, it was just a touch over 6. A touch over 6.
Okay.
And so a lot of 5.5s, 5.8s,
So I was right on with the 5.5. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely hit the mean. If there would have been a
Okay.
mean time, you hit it. But that hits my radar as just kind of a sports fan, but not like locked in on Kansas City Chiefs or anything in particular. And it's just amazing how they have marketed that. And I still feel like I still go back to baseball. I can't get over baseball and ESPN ending their contract. That still bothers me.
Oh yeah.
And we can have just guys running 40s as an entertainment factor, but we can't have baseball. And maybe that just shows where baseball is.
Yeah. Well, I was I was driving my son to school this morning. We typically just kind of have the ESPN show on this morning. And they were talking NBA. And a little bit like the playoffs, what it looks like, and because they had mentioned their story, the way they led into it was the NBA was kind of self-hating, saying, "Hey, regular season's boring," and they're trying to say, "Well, is it boring, or what's the playoffs look like? Are we excited about this?" And they didn't really come to a true consensus, but more lean towards like, the regular season doesn't really matter as much. Dude, like 10 of the 16 teams in each conference get into the playoffs. That's why you can have load management. That's why you can miss a game or 5 or 6, right? Because the regular season doesn't really matter, right? And if you look at it, there's 3 teams in the West, maybe a couple teams in the East that have a chance at winning it realistically.
The
And so
older I get, and it's weird, and I'm not sure how I got there. I just have very little interest, and that hadn't always been the case.
hey, come around like late May when you're in the Eastern or Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, I'll watch. Yeah,
Watch that. But
I turned on ESPN this morning. Like my son and I, like when he's eating breakfast, whatever, we usually turn on MLB Network or turn on something where we get some highlights. And so I was turning on ESPN, and they were doing like WNBA stuff. And that I had zero interest, even with Caitlin
WNBA stuff in the off season.
They were talking about Diana Taurasi that retired, which is, I guess, a big story. But they were showing on her highlights and put together this big package. And I was like, dude, I'm turning this. And so I turned it to MLB Network and I watched something else. And it's like, I feel like they're pushing these sports on me.
I
And
think
there's no best. I can
yeah.
remember when ESPN used to have like spring training highlights and
Oh,
kind of
they would do the tour of the Cactus League and the Grapefruit League, and they would break down teams and do little previews. And man, I lived for that as a kid. I lived for that. Like,
no mas, not
yeah.
anymore, bro. There's none of that. And dude, there's some really good young players. If you watched a little bit of if you have MLB Network, there's some really good young players. But 19-year-old Yankee shortstop George Lombard Jr.
Oh, George Lombard Jr. I played against George Lombard Sr.
He's tearing it up for the Yankees in spring training. Like he looks
Well,
like
he's not going to take over Volpe's position, is he?
I mean, let's be honest. Is Volpe that special?
Volpe won a Gold Glove his rookie year.
I mean, Gold Glove feels subjective. I mean, I know it's not.
Gold Gloves used to be subjective. I think there's a lot more analytics and statistical like evaluation around it now.
You're probably right. But there's a couple of guys. Like if you just Google, like when Paul was getting ready to make me look crazy on this, like there's several young like shortstops that can bring it, and there's one on. There's just really good players that could have headlines.
Paul Skeens.
Full beard looks great.
Hey, full beard looks better. I like the full beard look. But last year's Rookie of the Year in the National League, the Skeens, Jackson Merrill, Jackson Churio for the Brewers, like those are good players, man. Yeah, so I think exciting time and baseball. I'm a good product on the field, man. Good games, good players.
Dude, there's been some. I'm always amazed, and I went down to last year. We took a little trip to Key West, and we stopped in Palm Beach or whatever, and saw a spring training game. I mean, it was packed down there, and I know people take that as kind of a vacation, and
yeah,
West Palm Beach, but it was. I feel like ESPN's missing out on this. I just don't understand why we have no love for baseball anymore.
And I remember,
is there too many old whites that just watch it? Is that kind of what happens, and they want the different people?
I don't know. That's an interesting thought experiment, right? What's the kind of demographics? Who's watching? From a race perspective, a gender perspective, age perspective. Yeah, we can look up those numbers and kind of talk about it at another time, right? I think it's an interesting thought experiment at least. But I think it's we're talking about it. Me and my son, we've been to a bunch of MLB games, and
I feel like we're you're extremely dedicated. I'm a fan, but you're next level.
But
you're watching old games from 1984 and recalling pitch sequence.
True. We are also not in an MLB market. We're not even close to an MLB market. Like our closest team is 6 hours away in DC or 8 hours away in Atlanta. Like we don't have a team, right? So imagine if there was a team in Raleigh or Charlotte, I'd go to 6, 7 games a year, I hope.
I bet you'd go to more than that.
I think I would try to go to more, but you know how it is with kids, and schedules, and life. It's 6 or 7 feels like a pretty big commitment to me. Like it's.
I was gonna put you down for like a 10 or 15, like that late. Like, hey, something canceled. We're going out on Sunday afternoon. I could see
tickets, the 300 level,
set in the outfield. Invite
that
Ron.
Man, I think about that something because I remember growing up watching the Cubbies, and I was so jealous of those people who would just sit in the bleachers and it was crazy. So again, talking about, I was watching the 1998 Kerry Wood 20 strikeout game the other day, and didn't watch the whole thing. I watched like the first 3 innings. There were not many people in the crowd for that game. It was an early season game, and I don't feel like I guess you do see that with some bad, like the White Sox and Marlins, but but yeah, it was odd. I mean, I guess it was a colder game in Chicago, but early season. But dude, Kerry Wood had some electric stuff. But the other thing we talked about this, he was getting a couple inches off the plate, ringing up on a couple calls, and I remember Jeff Bagwell, his first at bat, caught one it looked like it was maybe a ball off or half a it was. And I think if you went retroactively back and put that K zone on some of those old games, you'd be like, "Oof,
Well, I
that's
know Maddox would be. Maddox got a lot, and it's interesting how the game has changed. I don't think those guys got anything up and down really, but they've got a lot at times, especially if they establish that as
yeah,
they could command it. The catcher would keep slipping out, and they would get. Yeah, I think they'd get a ball and a half, maybe two at times. But
yeah." They
it's
weren't getting
incredible,
below the
dude.
belt though. Nothing up and down.
Come on, ESPN, do better. Put some baseball stuff on your morning program for me.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, hey, thanks for listening today. We appreciate it. Make sure you continue to subscribe, follow, like us on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Apple Pod, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere you can find podcasts. We're out there. Hey, go check out that merch shop too. We got plenty of good merch out there. We'd love to see you wearing a Wright Stew podcast T-shirt. But otherwise, man, have a great Friday.
Out, go pack, 8-5. That's for baseball.